Akira was a high school student whose world revolved around only two pleasures: video games and the candies stuffed into the school bag he always carried. His room was as messy as a pigsty, but he couldn't care less. Akira had no close friends and wasn't interested in making any or dating. He believed that games alone were enough to make life meaningful. So on his way to school that morning, he remained glued to the game Block Blash he was playing, ignoring the crowded streets around him. When Akira stopped at a red light and continued feeding his gaming addiction, a figure suddenly appeared. It was a large young man with bandages wrapped around his head like someone who had just walked out of an emergency room, his face radiating an unmistakable killing intent. The bandaged man stared at Akira with blood-red eyes and without warning charged straight at him, while a truck suddenly blocked Akira's view, leaving him even more confused. In that brief moment when their eyes met, Akira understood the man was targeting him, and he dodged the first attack through almost unconscious reflexes. Nearby, someone had left a bicycle behind, so Akira quickly jumped on and pedaled desperately to escape. However, what terrified him was that the bandaged man was chasing only him, and his speed was so fast that within seconds he had closed the distance despite Akira pedaling with all his might. When the tension reached its peak, Akira suddenly remembered that this situation was exactly like a survival game he had played before, where the protagonist would lose immediately if touched by the monster, but could pass the first level just by dodging and stalling long enough. That thought sparked in his mind, helping Akira calm down and search for a location that could help him prolong the chase. He ran into an old abandoned building. Akira hoped the building's deterioration would slow down his pursuer. Sure enough, when the bandaged man entered, the wooden planks creaked under his feet, and a large section of floor suddenly collapsed, pulling his massive body down with it. Akira thought he had temporarily escaped, but immediately after, the man leaped out of the rubble with a powerful frog-like jump, making Akira realize he couldn't rely on luck a second time. From then on, Akira decided to treat the whole situation like a real-life horror game and focused all his concentration on preparing one final trap on the building's rooftop. He set up a weak point in the floor and calculated the position where an old water tank mounted above could fall. When the bandaged man was lured to the rooftop exactly as planned, the heavy water tank crashed down on him, making Akira believe he had perfectly cleared the first round. However, that belief lasted only a few seconds because the man was still alive and continued charging at him like a machine that felt no pain. Akira used that charging momentum to grab a rusty steel pipe from the floor and stabbed it straight into his pursuer's chest. Blood immediately gushed out and the massive body collapsed. While Akira was still gasping for breath thinking he had survived, a girl with cat-like features appeared behind him. She said he had killed her pet and had done something few could accomplish. Akira tried to search his memory but couldn't remember where he had met her. The girl only said that he had performed quite well earlier, but this was a battle he couldn't win. And within 5 seconds of her appearance, she unleashed a blow so powerful it blew off Akira's arm and side of his torso without any warning. Lying on the cold cement floor, Akira whispered that if this was an unwinnable battle, it meant the story wasn't over yet, and perhaps this was just a turning point like in the games he loved. Despite bleeding out, Akira still thought that as long as his match hadn't ended, he still had a chance next time. The cat girl looked at him, said the fun would continue, then turned and walked away, leaving Akira in a pool of blood with the fragile belief that this was only the beginning. When Akira opened his eyes again, he found himself lying in a strange hall where many others also appeared confused like him. The first thing he thought of was what had happened, as he noticed his hands were locked in cold, smooth handcuffs, while the terrible wounds he had received earlier had completely disappeared as if they never existed. While he still couldn't understand the situation, the cat girl appeared brilliantly on stage, her face still wearing that unsettlingly cheerful smile. She introduced herself as Meon and would serve as a guide for all the handcuffed people in the hall. Meon declared that everyone present had been considered dead in the real world. Right then, a tough-looking young man suddenly climbed onto the stage and demanded Meon immediately send him back home. Meon responded with a polite smile, thanked him for his cooperation, then suddenly unleashed a democratic blow straight through his body with her hand transformed into a biological cannon. Blood splattered everywhere while the crowd froze in shock, and Meon cheerfully explained that this was the ability she possessed. She said everyone present would be granted a special ability, and would have to use them to serve the project she mentioned. The handcuffs would lock their abilities, and when the red light signal turned green, their abilities would be released 5 seconds later. Meon announced that one of the project's rules allowed them to harm or even kill each other. Meon asked if anyone had questions, then approached Akira as if to observe his reaction. She also asked a seemingly clueless girl behind Akira, then moved to another tough-looking young man, encouraging them to freely ask questions. When the big man asked about where they were and the project Meon mentioned, she simply replied she had no obligation to answer. When he asked why she killed that person earlier, Meon shamelessly declared that since she played the villain, she held complete power over life and death. A red-haired model standing nearby suggested that Meon had intended to kill that person beforehand as an example, and Meon said that was quite a smart observation before moving to the next person. When a girl named Yuri asked why they were chosen, Meon only answered that everyone was selected randomly with no criteria. Right after, Meon's assistant appeared to announce the meeting had ended, and everyone would be escorted to their private rooms where they could relax and test their powers. Akira entered his assigned room, feeling it was like a beginner's room in a survival game. On the table was a box of candies and a letter addressed specifically to him. The letter stated the room contained daily necessities and items they could try using their abilities on. Additionally, there was a sealed envelope containing specific information about his ability. When Akira opened that envelope, he was very surprised because the power written inside far exceeded his expectations. However, his thoughts were quickly swept away by the tempting box of candies in front of him. Suddenly the room shook, proving someone nearby was using their ability. Akira recalled Meon's words and understood that participants were allowed to kill each other at any time. The tension hadn't even subsided when the first round was initiated, requiring them to fight one-on-one. Akira was brought into a classroom where he saw Madoka, the tough guy from before, waiting. Madoka warned that Akira should give up because his ability was extremely powerful. Akira never retreated in any game. When the handcuffs turned green and 5 seconds passed, Madoka immediately charged forward, swinging his stick that had transformed into a sharp sword, slashing through the blackboard and destroying the surrounding furniture. Akira continuously threw desks and chairs to disrupt the attack rhythm, then threw 2 feather brooms to create a dust cloud for his escape. Madoka chased him to a dark laboratory, but Akira threw a lamp at him as a distraction. He even found a welding torch and planned a surprise attack, but Madoka seized it and smashed around trying to find him. Madoka believed Akira was hiding because his ability was useless in combat, but Akira spoke up, saying his ability was so dangerous he didn't want to use it. Madoka didn't believe him and charged again. At that moment, Akira pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing a feather, saying his ability was to transform his hand into a cannon. Madoka immediately remembered the scene of Meon killing that young man earlier and stared at the falling feather. In that moment of hesitation, Akira's hand truly transformed into a gun and shot Madoka flying into the wall. When the sword left Madoka's hand and reverted back to a wooden stick, Akira pointed the gun at him, demanding surrender. Madoka had to accept defeat. Meon observed the battle from the control room and was extremely delighted. She said Akira had become the candidate she especially favored. When her assistant asked why Akira used the gun so late, Meon revealed that Akira's true power was not transforming his hand into a gun at all. Everything Akira did was an illusion, and he had deliberately deceived her to gain credibility in front of others. In the ability letter Akira received, his power was called False Sophistry, meaning he could make any object become what others believed it to be. That's why Akira prolonged the fight with Madoka, forcing him to believe his words before activating the ability. After the battle, Akira was escorted out by 2 guards. He walked while thinking about other ways he could use this ability. Lost in those thoughts, he didn't even notice Yuri staring at him intently. Although the first battle was successful, there were still many issues about this ability that Akira needed to verify, and this game had only just begun. Meon was very excited watching through the screen. Akira's ability was False Sophistry. To use this ability, he needed his opponent to be able to imagine it. However, simply verbally revealing the ability wouldn't make the opponent believe it. Therefore, Akira needed to create situations where the opponent would question themselves, couldn't let the opponent doubt. First, make the opponent think this could be a dangerous ability. Then at the moment they attack, plant words in their head, and they would certainly imagine it. In summary, this Akira was a real game breaker. The next opponent in battle would be Yuri. She was also a high school student, but her life was far from happy. Her mother was a loose woman who constantly brought new boyfriends home and let them stay overnight. Yuri herself was the product of her mother and some man on some random night. Her mother always blamed everything on Yuri, claiming her daughter had ruined her life. After having a child, she continued bringing young men from bars and clubs home as new boyfriends. Her mother's newest boyfriend even brought along a little daughter, and Yuri's mother wanted her to take care of the girl. Initially, Yuri fiercely opposed this, but when she learned the little girl was also just a victim of careless parents, also abused like herself, she softened and decided from then on to be a good big sister and take care of her. However, she was still just a high school student, having to bear all kinds of pressure on her shoulders. Previously, she had helped a classmate who was being bullied, but unfortunately he turned out to be a perverted stalker. On the day before coming to this project, Yuri saw the stalker preparing to jump off a tall building. Kind-hearted Yuri ran up the building to save him, but he deluded himself into thinking she did it because she liked him and that they were destined for each other. Yuri climbed over the railing wanting to save him, But the pervert was so twisted he grabbed her and jumped, wanting her to die with him. That was exactly why Yuri died and was transferred to this crazy project. This was also Yuri's nightmare. Waking up, she confusedly thought it was all just a dream, hoping she would soon return home when the dream ended. But the cruel reality was that she was still in the strange room of the project. She angrily kicked open the door, declaring that being chosen to participate in this ridiculous project wasn't fun at all. She wanted to go home to help her new little sister, but now she couldn't do that anymore. Yuri fell from the bed, and that's when she discovered she also possessed a superpower. So Yuri opened the letter to discover her ability. She could enhance her attacks. She tried hitting the wall, and immediately a shockwave was created, violently shaking Akira's room. Seeing her ability, Yuri was very surprised, hoping it would help her escape by breaking down the door. However, the doors here were extremely solid, so this was impossible for Yuri. Not long after, Yuri's opponent for the next battle was revealed. It was a fat old man like the protagonist in a dirty old man tag. He appeared extremely excited upon smelling the virgin scent emanating from Yuri despite them being dozens of meters apart. Using his skill, the perverted old man approached Yuri as the countdown reached 0. Immediately after, their handcuffs were removed, and the disgusting old man instantly received a kick straight to his front. To Yuri's surprise, the old man showed no fear but instead seemed pleased, as if her powerful kick only excited him more. The disgusted and weary expression on Yuri's face seemed to make him even more enamored. He even casually removed his pants, as if wanting to disgust her to the extreme, so he could absorb those negative emotions as a source of power. He screamed in twisted pleasure that the fear and contempt of a high school girl was what made him stronger, then charged at Yuri with a grotesque, distorted smile. The old man reached out and gripped her throat tightly, pulling her close while rambling about his sick preferences for high school girls, which only made Yuri more disgusted and tired. She felt her life would never escape the persistent harassment of annoying coincidental events, and perverts kept appearing one after another as if the universe was trying to ruin her life. In that suffocating moment, Yuri decided not to endure anymore. She grabbed the wrinkled arm of the old man and squeezed with all her strength. The cracking sound rang out as his arm was crushed, making the old man scream in agony and fall into panic. Not missing the opportunity, Yuri leaped up, kicked the chalk dust on the floor to block his vision, then circled behind the old man in an instant. She unleashed continuous kicks and punches with all the power her divine demon ability provided, a power that increased all her physical attributes by 5 times. After just a few consecutive blows, the old man collapsed to the floor unconscious and unable to resist, the battle ending quickly and decisively. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Akira was startled awake by a knock on the door. A security guard stood right in front of him, announcing it was time to enter the next round. Akira was escorted along the hallway and brought into a large room where Yuri, Jin, Madoka, and the monkey-faced young man were already waiting. The atmosphere was tense as a drawn string when Akira entered. At that moment, Meon appeared and explained that the second round would be a team battle of 5 versus 5, and they would have 2 hours to prepare before it began. Meon began explaining Program 2. The content was team battles of 5 people. She only explained that much before giving everyone time to digest the information. But obviously the whole group was drowning in confusion, each person wearing a face full of question marks and exclamation marks without understanding anything. Akira told himself that if this round was a challenge requiring coordination, then the team would have to share their abilities with each other. He knew Madoka had seen him use the cannon in the previous battle, so Madoka would almost certainly assume that was his ability. However, Akira still hesitated, wondering whether he should reveal the truth about his ability for the common good, because exposing his real power to the wrong person could lead to fatal consequences, something he absolutely did not want to accept in this risky situation. Right at that moment, the monkey-faced young man stood up and proactively took the role of leading the meeting. He introduced himself as Sawatari and said his ability was to create rope from a knot. Yuri heard this and immediately mocked him mercilessly, but also confidently demonstrated her own ability, making Sawatari even more jealous that these 2 kids possessed abilities stronger than he thought. Madoka also presented his ability, making Sawatari increasingly doubtful about his position in the group. Then he turned to ask Shin about his ability, and Shin explained that he could become invincible for about 2 seconds, although he admitted he had no intention of using the ability that had been forcibly implanted in his body without his consent. However, he emphasized that he was originally a professional wrestler and still had enough combat experience if needed. Finally, it was Akira's turn, and he chose to keep his true ability absolutely secret, calmly saying only that he could transform his hand into a cannon. He understood clearly that revealing the truth too early or to the wrong person could cost him his life, and that was something he could not carelessly gamble on with people he didn't trust. Sawatari wanted everyone to demonstrate their abilities on the spot to verify, but Akira dodged by asking Madoka whether he had recovered from the previous battle. Sawatari immediately became curious and wanted to know if Madoka had really lost. Madoka looked annoyed, told Sawatari to back off, then explained that right after the battle he had been treated, but only with a few bandages and painkillers. The whole group quickly realized the medical service here wasn't much better than in real life. Akira felt relieved that he wasn't forced to display his true ability, especially since he himself wasn't sure whether his ability could be demonstrated in front of allies because the description in the letter was too abstract. That was exactly why he decided to use the upcoming team battle as an opportunity to test all of his power in reality. The discussion time finally ended, and the group was soon notified to enter the second round. Sawatari suddenly became serious, saying the team should take advantage of every opportunity they could seize in the upcoming team battle to eliminate opponents. He explained that they absolutely could not be naive enough to believe the enemy would show mercy or give them a chance to survive. Therefore, in his view, the only way to survive longer was to proactively reduce the number of opponents as quickly as possible. Sawatari's words made the whole group silent for a moment because everyone understood what he said was completely logical. Not long after, they were brought to the arena for round 2. When everyone thought the battle would take place as a 5 versus 5 team fight as initially announced, they were shocked to realize the actual rules were nothing like that. Instead, each person would have to step onto the arena to fight one-on-one directly with members of the opposing team. Sawatari was already sweating from shock the moment he arrived. He blurted out to the group that it turned out the so-called round 2 wasn't a team battle as they thought. Akira standing beside him had the same thought. He quickly realized that forming 5-person teams beforehand was basically just a psychological trap, creating a false sense of bonding so they would easily be drawn into protecting each other. This way, the organizers would have more opportunities to make them kill each other in subsequent rounds. The first match was between Sawatari and Rin, the sharp red-haired model. When their handcuffs were removed, Rin immediately told Sawatari he should give up. She softened her voice, speaking very sweetly, as if trying to make him lower his guard. But Sawatari completely didn't believe her because he thought she was hiding some kind of weapon or dangerous trick under her loose clothing. Facing his suspicion, Rin slowly removed her coat to reveal the soft pajamas she had been wearing since being pulled into the project. She said confidently that if Sawatari would lose and give her the victory, her body would be his reward after the match. Sawatari was momentarily tempted, but reason pulled him back very quickly. He immediately shook his head and said his ability was extremely dangerous, so he didn't want to use it on a woman. Then he suggested they settle it by flipping a coin to determine the winner. Rin smiled in agreement and Sawatari tossed the coin high. But right at the moment he let his guard down for a single breath, Rin suddenly charged to attack with a sharp blade hidden in her sleeve. The blade pierced his body, making Sawatari fall backwards onto the arena floor. He lost immediately, and still no one could figure out what Rin's real ability was. Medical staff rushed in, but after a few seconds of assessment, they realized he was too severely wounded, with absolutely no chance of treatment. So they had to dispose of Sawatari's body right on the spot. Yuri, seeing this scene, tried to step forward to help, but Akira pulled her back because he understood it was already too late. Madoka was frustrated, saying Sawatari was pathetic for letting his guard down at such a crucial moment. Yuri, hearing his comment, felt uncomfortable, feeling those words were too harsh. Even Shin told Madoka that if he couldn't say anything nice, at least stay silent. Akira immediately realized the team's morale was seriously cracking, so he tried to intervene. He said they could resolve these conflicts later because what mattered most right now was they had to focus on the rest of the round. Then the list of the next 2 people to enter the arena was announced. It was Shin and Ringo. Ringo appeared with a strangely relaxed demeanor that left everyone puzzled. Shin planned to quickly throw her out of the arena as soon as he was unlocked to avoid harming her as well as avoid getting seriously injured like Sawatari. The moment the handcuffs were removed, he charged straight at Ringo with the intention of ending the match in 1 second. But Ringo suddenly raised her hand as if signaling to stop. Shin froze, thinking she was about to use a weapon or ability to attack him. But it turned out Ringo only raised her hand to signal surrender, leaving everyone stunned. Ringo's true ability was to copy part of another person's ability. She had tried to copy Shin's ability, but couldn't sense anything because his ability only activated for 2 seconds when he allowed it. Unable to analyze her opponent's ability, she decided to surrender early to preserve her own life. Rin was furious about this and immediately shook Ringo's shoulders repeatedly, unable to accept that her teammate gave up so quickly. But another girl named Sako stepped forward to stop Rin, saying she would win the next round to save the team's honor. Sako faced Madoka in the next match. The moment the handcuffs were removed, she immediately pulled out her crossbow and shot a metal ball at Madoka, believing she would win quickly. However, Madoka deflected that ball. The ball unexpectedly expanded into a large sphere, flying straight into the wall thanks to Sako's ability. Immediately after, Madoka transformed the stick in his hand into a sharp sword and charged at her. Sako continuously threw more balls to block him, but Madoka dodged them all. She enlarged the last ball to maximum size before Madoka could deflect it. But Madoka simply sliced it in half with his sword. Only then did everyone understand that Madoka's true ability was not just transforming a stick into a sword, but creating a sword that could cut through anything. Sako began to feel afraid, realizing she was facing one of the strongest opponents in this entire round. But she couldn't back down, because Rin was watching her with fierce eyes, making her unable to accept defeat easily. Madoka still kindly advised her to surrender immediately for safety. But she was too afraid of Rin's demon-like gaze watching from afar to do that. She decided to risk her life, using all the remaining balls in her pouch to attack him. She continuously threw them one by one at Madoka, making the balls expand into enormous spheres, blocking every path. But Madoka calmly dodged each attack. Then he gradually realized he was being surrounded in a circle entirely made of enlarged balls, forming a dangerous labyrinth where one mistake would get him crushed. The girl confidently declared she would use the last ball to defeat him. But Madoka still swung his sword and easily sliced it in half. She let out a tired laugh and admitted she was just joking, because actually she had hidden one more ball in her shirt pocket. She was about to shoot again, but her crossbow had already been cut by Madoka at some point, making her stumble and fall to the floor. Shocked to realize he also had a knife cleverly hidden beforehand, Madoka stood there and explained he wasn't hiding any sophisticated weapon, just that while being surrounded by the enormous balls, he had proactively broken the wooden stick in his hand to transform it into two smaller weapons he could use depending on the situation. Then he approached Sako with an unusually polite demeanor, telling her she should surrender while he was still going easy, but she muttered that the match wasn't over yet. Madoka instinctively widened his eyes when he looked down at his feet, discovering the backup ball she had left had fallen to the ground and was glowing abnormally. Before he could react, that ball expanded at dizzying speed, crushing both of his real balls, making him roll on the floor in agony, eyes rolling back from shock and pain, while Sako stood beside him, raising her hand to celebrate victory with pride, yet completely unaware she had only survived by sheer luck. Next, Akira stepped up to prepare to fight a young man named Koji from the opposing team. Shin and Yuri stood below, cheering intensely, wanting him to win at all costs for the team's honor. But Akira himself had no intention of trying as hard as they hoped. He thought to himself that even if their team lost, they wouldn't be killed immediately, and the punishment they would receive certainly wouldn't be too severe. That was exactly why he decided this match would mainly be used to gather information about his opponent's true ability. Right after the handcuffs were removed, Akira tried to activate his cannon ability based on his team's belief that he possessed that ability, but he discovered nothing happened. This made him turn back to look at Madoka and say that the guy had just disappointed the whole team by losing his match, so he should be punished, as a subtle way of shifting blame. And right at the moment he said that, Akira successfully activated his cannon ability and fired a fake shot grazing past Madoka, making him glare furiously at being dragged into this. Akira thereby realized something important. His ability only activated when he was directly communicating with the person he wanted to deceive, making them believe what he said. Immediately, he turned back to his opponent. He activated the cannon again and shot straight at the young man, making him panic. But surprisingly, he used his ability to dissolve Akira's entire shot, even making the gun on Akira's hand melt away as if it never existed. While this guy was distracted by a group of girls outside cheering for him, Akira took the opportunity to throw his shoe straight at his face to test his reaction. Then immediately moved behind him, pointed the newly created gun at his opponent's back, and calmly told him to raise his hands. Akira gradually understood that the young man possessed the ability to neutralize others' abilities by placing his hand on the ground. But at this point he had gotten close enough to be able to shoot him before he could activate his power. The opponent, seeing the unfavorable situation, immediately raised his hands to surrender, ending the match swiftly. When Akira stepped down from the arena, Madoka immediately grabbed his collar to confront him, because he had made the whole team tense just to test his own ability. Next it was Yuri's turn, and ironically, the person standing across from her was the very stalker who had dragged her to die with him in the past. He appeared extremely excited to meet Yuri again, while she just wanted to crush him on the spot. When the round began, the stalker arrogantly said Yuri could freely attack because he had the ability to harden his entire body. Yuri heard this and just muttered something like she didn't care, then threw a punch without any mercy straight into his stomach, sending him flying like a bullet, slamming into the wall behind and passing out on the spot. Shin, watching from afar, said that just increasing physical strength by 5 times certainly wasn't enough to create such a terrifying punch. Akira then explained that Yuri's ability didn't just enhance a single attribute, but could amplify her entire physique, reflexes, speed, muscles, and body stability by 5 times each, then combine them to create a synergistic effect with power far beyond imagination. Thanks to that, everyone understood why that punch just now had force, as if a divine demon had descended. Right after the match ended, Meon appeared announcing it was time to enter round 3. But before that happened, the losing team had to receive punishment. The agents entered, blindfolded everyone, then separated the two teams, taking each group to a separate area. When the blindfolds were removed, Akira and his teammates were shocked to realize they were standing in a luxurious restaurant. Meon said this was the reward for the winning team, while the losing side was forced to wear bunny costumes to serve them food. Akira and Madoka ate comfortably, while Rin tried to act friendly with Akira. But he absolutely didn't want to get involved with such a treacherous woman. Akira instead showed more closeness to Yurei, even personally tying a handkerchief around her wrist that was injured after the fight with the stalker. When the meal ended, Meon briefly explained the mechanism of round 3. Then the two teams were led down two different paths. Akira and his group were taken to a room where they were asked to separate and follow individual paths. At the end of each corridor, there would be further instructions for each person. Madoka and Shin left first, with Shin saying that even if they had to become enemies in the next round, he still hoped everyone would survive. Before Yuri left, Akira said the handkerchief he gave her was very precious, so she absolutely had to survive to return it. Yuri blushed, turned away quickly, promising she would meet him up ahead. But actually Akira was just deliberately flirting with this easily swayed girl to maintain good relations and ensure his own future survival. He continued walking along a path, and when he reached the end, he discovered a small room. Inside the room was a smartphone. However, when he approached it, he discovered it had been completely disabled. The system only left an extremely brief notification, stating that he currently possessed exactly 100 points and his mission was to collect 1,000 points. Beyond that simple information, the system provided no further explanation, leaving Akira vaguely worried. He tried to deduce the meaning of those numbers while guessing how dangerous this challenge would be. Before he could fully understand the meaning of the requirement, the door in front suddenly swung open. Akira was immediately pulled into a new space, where the system announced he only had 30 minutes to defeat as many people in the area as possible and each victory would earn him 10 points. Without any further explanation, and with the situation looking dangerous, he was forced to move immediately. Akira ran everywhere to quickly find targets, but before he could proactively attack anyone, a young man suddenly jumped in front of him. Akira thought he was about to fight, but this young man suddenly asked him to stop. The person said he didn't want to fight and even admitted he had deliberately ambushed just to recruit Akira to join his team. Before Akira could understand what was happening, he heard hurried footsteps and turned around to see Yuri running toward him looking panicked. Behind her was a group of strange, perverted-looking people following closely, making her sigh with relief like seeing a savior when she spotted Akira. She immediately hid behind him, while Akira was still confused about the situation. The group chasing her declared they wanted to add new members to the red team, while the young man from before was trying to persuade Akira to join the blue team. The red team was a group known to be extremely violent and cruel. The blue team member also knew this well, so he tried to stall for time so Akira and Yuri could escape. This young man used an ability to transform a stick into a bow that could shoot a barrage of arrows continuously. However, the perverted old man from the red team was no pushover either. He had the ability to create shots like a cannon. Yuri, upon seeing this, was startled and told Akira that Guy possessed an ability similar to Akira's, which made everyone believe Akira really had the cannon ability. Akira also immediately demonstrated this by firing a warning shot that made everyone wary. Right after, Akira along with Yuri and the blue team member took the opportunity to escape. The red team old man refused to give up and kept shooting at them, but Akira counterattacked with a powerful shot of his own, creating a large explosion, giving the whole group time to retreat. When they were safer, the blue team member introduced himself as Sato and thanked Akira for saving his life. Akira and Yuri also responded with thanks because Sato had tried to help them earlier. Then both of them asked Sato to explain the relationship between the red and blue teams. Sato said there were two main factions in round 3. The red team was extremely dangerous with two leaders who were strong, intelligent, and cruel. After hearing this, Akira understood the safest choice was still the blue team, and he leaned toward that decision. So he followed Sato to the blue team's base. The base wasn't a makeshift camp as he imagined, but a fairly complete settlement with carefully built houses, a common living area, and many people living there like a real community. What surprised Akira most was that the group even had a newborn baby, because according to Sato, the baby's mother had been brought into the project when she was 3 months pregnant. The baby's existence made him realize how much this community had tried to maintain normal life, despite facing such a brutal round. Observing how everyone lived, how they united and supported each other, Akira thought that to keep a community stable in such chaotic circumstances full of superpowers, the leader must certainly be strong and wise. Afterward, Sato led Akira and Yuri to meet the blue team's leader, a man named Emoto. He appeared very pleased to know his team had 2 new members, and that joy increased when he heard Sato report that Akira possessed the cannon ability, an ability ranked a class and rarely seen. When learning Yuri had the ability to multiply her physical strength by 5 times, both Emoto and Sato were startled because that power was also considered a class, potentially bringing great advantage to the blue team in the upcoming points battle. Akira and Yuri could only stay silent at the 2 men's reactions because both felt the captain and Sato weren't as strong as they initially imagined. However, Emoto quickly explained the situation of round 3. He said the main goal of this round was to collect 1,000 points by completing various missions, and these points could also be used as currency to buy many important items. Due to the harsh environment, many people had formed small teams to increase their chances of survival. Right after, Emoto told them about the strange rise of the red team. He believed the red team had expanded their forces abnormally and kidnapped many other players without specific reason. According to him, the red team didn't want to move on to the next test, so they had turned the entire area into a petty kingdom where they made their own rules. They exploited weaker people, used them as slaves, and prevented anyone from passing this round. That was why Emoto had formed the blue team to fight against that tyranny and maintain some fairness for the remaining people. Additionally, he mentioned there was also the cyan team, a neutral group acting for personal goals. After explaining everything, Emoto asked Akira and Yuri to support him in the fight against the red team. Yuri agreed immediately because she felt it was the right thing to do, but Akira had a different intention. He suddenly pointed at Emoto, shocking everyone. Yet Emoto remained calm and Akira's cannon ability didn't appear. This made Akira wonder whether it was because Emoto's ability had neutralized his attack, or because the old man didn't truly believe he possessed that ability. Emoto replied that Akira wanting to take him hostage was also a choice, and he challenged the boy to shoot if he was prepared to face all the consequences. Akira immediately pulled the trigger, but the attack he thought would surely explode was completely neutralized by Emoto. The old man just smiled slightly, a smile so calm it made Akira feel uneasy, then asked if he was satisfied now, as if that shot was just a trivial test not worth worrying about. Yuri beside him got angry immediately. She turned to Akira with reproachful eyes because of his impulsive action. But Emoto gently told her not to be angry because his ability allowed him to block any attack in the world, from guns, blades to other strange abilities that players possessed. He said he understood Akira just wanted to test whether he was qualified to lead them, and asked again if the boy felt reassured and satisfied now. Right after, an old woman entered the room and informed Emoto they had just gotten many new recruits, which was good news for the blue team because the more people they had, the higher their ability to resist the red team. However, the old woman also added that because the number of recruits had increased too quickly, they didn't have enough rooms to distribute like before. Akira, hearing this, immediately suggested that he and Yuri share a room, shocking Yuri completely, freezing her on the spot, because the way Akira said it sounded like joking, but was completely serious, and her shock multiplied when they discovered the room even had 3 wolves to prevent population growth. Yuri wondered if she could sleep tonight having to live with Akira in such a tiny room as shady as a motel. While she was still confused, Akira said he had something he really wanted to tell her, making the dreamy girl immediately blush and start imagining wildly that this might be a confession moment. Akira handed her a piece of paper, and Yuri was 90% confident it was a love letter. But when she opened it, inside was written that his real ability wasn't the cannon as everyone mistakenly believed but telepathy. Yuri cried a little inside from disappointment, but Akira told her to try believing in it and see if it was real. When she tried to accept that sudden information, they suddenly began hearing each other's thoughts, as if 2 brains were connected by the same invisible line. Yuri found this experience both strange and interesting, while Akira said from now on they should only communicate through telepathy when needing private conversations. He said there was something truly important and absolutely private he wanted to discuss with her, but he worried their room might have listening devices planted by Emoto. Yuri asked if he suspected the old man, and Akira replied that Emoto was a very capable leader, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be cautious of newcomers as powerful as them. Then Akira finally revealed his true ability, that his real power was to become whatever others thought of him, which made Yuri freeze because she couldn't understand the meaning of that sentence. And right when they were still confused, their phones simultaneously rang with a video message from Meon, announcing that tomorrow there would be a major mission to hunt ghouls, a mission promising to bring enormous points, and she mentioned they should take advantage of this opportunity to earn as many points as possible. Afterward, Akira began negotiating with Yuri in his familiar cautious manner, telling her to continue maintaining the thought that his real ability was still telepathy, because only when Yuri kept that belief in her head could they connect smoothly and use other abilities flexibly. He also made clear that if he needed to use the cannon ability, he would immediately redirect his target to someone else to mislead the blue team as well as those who might be observing them from afar. The next morning, Emoto gathered everyone in the team. He explained in detail the newly announced mission and asked everyone to mentally prepare for facing risks. They quickly moved to the ancient ruins, where Meon was waiting for them with her usual calm attitude. Accompanying her were the ghouls, creatures that Akira was immediately startled upon seeing because their appearance was exactly like the mummy guy who had attacked him before. Meon declared that each ghoul killed would bring 30 points to the player, and they were absolutely forbidden from using abilities on other participants, essentially forcing everyone to focus all their strength on the monsters in front of them. She ordered the mission to begin, and the ghouls immediately charged like a pack of starving beasts. Emoto stepped up first. He blocked all their attacks without flinching, while the remaining players quickly took down many ghouls thanks to their coordinated teamwork and his command. Akira also activated his cannon ability by using team members as relay points to amplify his power and shot down several more ghouls. Right after, the red team Captain Ikai and Vice Captain Kuro appeared, neither intending to participate in the mission but only wanting to find opportunities to defeat the blue team to show off their strength. Everyone in the blue team immediately retreated upon seeing them because Emoto wanted to keep all of the team's abilities secret from those two dangerous individuals. However, the cunning red team leader came up with another scheme. Kuro possessed the debt collection ability, allowing him to force those who owed him to pay back with anything. Exploiting it, he pushed a group of weak players to face the ghouls, causing many to die horribly. Ringo was also among those pushed into danger, but Yuri and Akira appeared in time to save her from a fatal attack by a ghoul. They reported to Emoto that there were still many other victims who needed rescuing, and he agreed immediately, then ordered all blue team members to help those who had been pushed to their deaths. However, Meon decided to make everything more chaotic. She snapped her fingers, releasing the boss from the ruins. The moment it appeared, it grabbed and killed a ghoul as if it was just a light snack. Kuro immediately threw more victims toward the boss to exploit the situation. A blue team member rushed to save them but was knocked away by the boss in an instant. Akira hurriedly shot at the boss, but was also knocked back. Emoto ran over to save him and told Akira to immediately leave there to continue rescuing others, while he would confront the boss directly. Emoto understood that if he used his true ability, the blue team would lose their most important trump card against the red team, but at this moment they had no other choice. The boss attacked him continuously. Emoto activated his mediator ability, allowing him to negotiate peace with opponents. Thanks to this, he neutralized all damage from it and accumulated all the recoil force. After ending negotiations, he returned all the damage onto the boss, causing its stomach to explode like a ball containing tremendous pressure. However, he was also injured in his arm after that counterattack, and Kuro immediately analyzed the old man's ability. Nevertheless, the blue team was extremely happy with the achievement they had just accomplished, and they rushed toward Emoto. Meon suddenly announced the game wasn't over yet. The boss had its stomach blown open, but had started eating the other ghouls, and the enormous wound in its stomach was immediately filled in a grotesque manner, making everyone realize the true nightmare had only just begun. The boss slowly stood up. Emoto immediately ordered all blue team members to run as far as possible, because he knew well the power gap between them and the monster had exceeded safe limits. But Yuri refused to leave her teammates behind, especially refused to abandon Akira. She charged back toward the boss despite all warnings, trying to support Emoto while drawing the boss's attention to herself. She used all her 5 times enhanced strength to kick hard against its body, making it slide several meters. But this also made the boss angrier, and it charged straight at them again. Yuri spun around, grabbing its head, then jumped to the side to avoid the direct attack. However, right at that moment, both she and Emoto lost their footing and could no longer defend themselves. The very next second, a powerful beam of light came flying from afar. Akira had fired a cannon shot to save both of them. Meon, standing high above, observed and appeared extremely delighted seeing Akira being so reckless. As for Akira himself, he gritted his teeth and silently promised himself he would survive this entire game and would rematch her with all the power he had. Emoto scolded Akira and Yuri for being too reckless, but Akira only said the old man should leave everything to the two kids, as if he already had some plan in his head. He and Yuri dodged the boss's attacks while exchanging thoughts through telepathy. However, all their attacks couldn't cause any damage to this monstrous creature, making the situation increasingly dire. In that critical moment, Akira came up with an idea. He lured the boss toward the ruins area, where there weren't many people and was also suitable for action without worrying about injuring teammates. As soon as they arrived, Yuri understood his intention and immediately stepped aside to prepare for her part. The boss slammed hard into Akira, causing a large dust cloud to rise, and everyone watching thought he had been crushed. But when the dust gradually cleared, Akira was still standing there completely unharmed. A moment later, he jumped up and fired a cannon shot into the monster's mouth, causing its head to explode. Yuri joyfully rushed to embrace him. But that joy didn't last long because the headless corpse of the boss began to stand up again, as if its life didn't depend on its destroyed head. Right when both were preparing to receive the next attack, Ikai, the red team captain, appeared from behind and tore apart the boss's newly regenerated head with a brutal swing of his arm. He looked at the two kids and let out a sly laugh, saying they were an interesting pair. Yuri was furious that he dared to smirk while so many people had died in this mission. She charged to attack Ikai with her strongest kick, but he blocked it easily, then slammed her to the ground as if she was just a light doll. Akira and Emoto ran to help, but before they could act, Meon fired a warning shot. She stepped between the two teams and declared this mission wasn't over yet. According to the rules, they weren't allowed to fight here. However, she was delighted by the idea of the two teams fighting each other in another event. So she suggested creating a new special mission, a team battle, where both sides would have to hunt down and defeat the opponent's leader and sync their target's device with their own. Ikai appeared interested and asked Kuro what reward he wanted if the red team won. Kuro coldly said he wanted all blue team members to die. Emoto objected because that was too unfair, but Meon didn't care. She decided the special game would take place 7 days from today, when both teams had fully recovered. Akira and everyone returned to the blue team base. The injured were immediately taken for treatment. After being bandaged, Emoto called Akira to his office. He wanted to know what the boy's true ability was because he had witnessed Akira survive the boss's attack that should have instantly killed anyone else. Akira admitted his ability wasn't the canon but refused to reveal more. However, he promised to use his ability to defeat the red team at all costs. Outside the forest area, a girl was gathering firewood when she encountered a red team member. Luckily, Shin appeared in time to save her. The girl led him back to the base, and when he entered, everyone was wary because of his intimidating appearance. But Akira and Yuri recognized Shin and assured everyone he was a good person. Emoto was also about to greet him when right at that moment Meon appeared on screen with the final announcement. She said the mission taking place in 7 days would decide which team lives and which team dies. Emoto reminded everyone that although the upcoming mission carried great risk, this was also a rare opportunity for the blue team to eliminate the red team and completely turn the tide just as they had long planned. He believed if they could defeat the red team leaders, all pressure would vanish and the weaker ones would no longer have to be afraid. However, Akira realized something entirely different. According to him, the most dangerous opponent wasn't actually Captain Ikai, but Kuro, who had persuaded Meon to change the rules and turn the match into a collective massacre. He felt that having someone like that behind everything made the situation much more unpredictable. When returning to his room, Akira sat on the bed and began thinking seriously about what was about to happen when Ringo suddenly appeared at the door. She entered looking somewhat awkward, then gathered her courage to approach him. It turned out that all along, Ringo had been a gamer, and was even a huge fan of Akira because in the game she loved, he had defeated her countless times, making her both frustrated and admiring. She thanked him for saving her the other day and tried to hint about his true ability. But because she was too nervous, she ended up directly saying she knew his ability wasn't the canon. Akira was startled and immediately pulled her into the room, fearing others might hear. But just as he did that, Yuri walked past the hallway. He pushed Ringo against the wall and asked what she knew. Ringo obediently said her special ability allowed her to copy others' abilities and through that discover their true superpowers. This completely surprised Akira. She said her ability was similar to Akira's in that it needed a partner to maximize its power, and she wanted him to become her collaborator. Akira immediately asked if when she was a slave of the red team, she knew the true abilities of the members. Ringo smiled confidently, a smile that made Akira understand he had just found the most powerful weapon to prepare for the upcoming battle. Afterward, she left the room and happened to run into Yuri in the hallway, and Yuri looked at her with suspicious eyes. The next day, Akira came to Yuri's room where she was resting. He wanted her to come with him to meet the blue team members, but he turned away right before Yuri could answer yes. She was about to follow immediately, but she was still worried about the matter between Akira and Ringo, and wanted him to explain clearly first. Meanwhile, Kuro had finished preparing the fighting force for the life or death mission. He summoned the strongest members of the red team. Rin was also present, and the rest were all bloodthirsty battle maniacs. Kuro's assistant brought in a slave who had previously been with the blue team. He confessed that he had just been released from the blue team base by a red team spy and was carrying an important message. The spy reported he had directly seen Akira get attacked by the boss in the previous event and still survived. Therefore, he believed Akira's true ability was definitely not the canon, but something else far more dangerous. After hearing this, Kuro immediately believed it and went to find Ikai, who was currently eliminating some ghouls for practice. Kuro told Ikai that in the upcoming battle, the person they needed to be extremely careful of was Akira. Akira and Yuri continued deeper into the forest to reach the Cyan team's meeting point, and when they were not far from the base, Akira suddenly turned to ask her to help test his ability. He told her to try imagining he possessed an ability similar to hers, but the moment Yuri concentrated and transmitted the thought to Akira, The power in his body instantly surged beyond his control. Akira was completely dazed and nearly collapsed. He sighed, admitting that increasing all physical capabilities by 5 times was no different from putting a taxi driver in an F1 race car, and that was both meaningless and extremely risky. He also said he believed Yuri was a true genius, because only she could use this multiplied strength naturally and safely. Akira recalled when they fought the final boss. At that time he had recklessly tried making Yuri imagine she had instant teleportation ability. Luckily it had succeeded, but he admitted that was truly a gamble, and now he didn't want to play with chance anymore. Therefore, he told Yuri that from now on they had to test each type of power carefully to see what he could actually control. Afterward, Akira tested the transformation ability. He hid behind a tree trunk and told Yuri to think of a specific person so he could transform into them. She closed her eyes to concentrate, and when Akira stepped out from behind the tree, his form had completely changed into Ringo. Akira realized that for accurate transformation, Yuri needed to see the target and clearly visualize that person in her mind. When he realized the person she chose was Ringo, Akira sighed and asked if she was thinking about yesterday when she saw Ringo leaving his room. Akira decided to tell Yuri the truth. He explained that Ringo had discovered his true ability, and she wanted to cooperate. Ringo had also asked him to reveal this to Yuri so she could feel at ease, but at the same time she requested Akira keep his ability secret from the rest of the blue team. Akira admitted that although Ringo seemed to be on their side, he still couldn't completely trust her. He said he only trusted Yuri and wanted to hear her opinion when they met Ringo later. Yuri nodded and told him to do what he felt was safest. Soon they arrived at the Cyan team base, where Madoka had joined earlier. The lazy leader of the Cyan team, Omoto, lay on a rock looking at them with completely unenthusiastic eyes. When Akira talked about the upcoming battle between the blue and red teams and said he came to hire the Cyan team's strength using bonus points, Omoto sprang up with rare interest. He said the deal sounded very attractive, but he refused to discuss this with the whole group and wanted to negotiate his own way. He looked at Yuri, then declared she was his type and told Akira he should leave her here as an exchange. Akira immediately refused and said Yuri was worth more than 20 ordinary people, and if Omoto really wanted to be worthy of Yuri's value, he should join the blue team himself and follow his orders. Omoto was silent for a moment, then burst out laughing. He said he was impressed with Akira's determination and finally agreed to notify the Cyan team members about that offer. However, he still decided not to directly participate in the battle because he believed the blue team would lose in this major confrontation. Right after, Madoka ran up to Akira and declared he would join the red team. Madoka said he wanted to become Akira's greatest rival and wanted to personally defeat him by siding with the most powerful opponent. Akira was indifferent to that declaration and only told him to do whatever he wanted, then turned and left the Cyan team base. They returned to the blue team base to continue preparing for battle, and before long the fateful day arrived. The whole team moved to the forest area where 5 giant towers stood, just as Akira and Yuri had predicted during their previous reconnaissance. When they arrived, Yuto turned to thank Akira for his thorough preparation. The accompanying representative also stepped up and said the mission rules would be announced soon. The atmosphere was heavy and tense, like a curtain about to cover the entire forest before the battle began. Through each person's device, Meon appeared on screen and seriously announced that to win, they had to steal the enemy's device and take it more than 3 meters away from the owner, because once past that threshold, the opponent's handcuffs would immediately activate and all their power would be sealed. Meon said each captured player would earn the team 1 point, and if their device was placed in special zones scattered across each tower, the team would receive an additional 10 points. These points could be used to request Meon to execute commands ranging from a simple 1-point notification to sealing an opponent player's ability for 50 points. Meon also emphasized the game would only end when the opposing leader's device was stolen, and therefore the entire team had to protect their leader as if protecting the survival of the whole group. When the representative told the blue team to register, their leader Emoto immediately pressed a few buttons on his device, and the mission officially began. He told everyone that priority number 1 was capturing 3 of the 5 towers and holding them at all costs, because only then would they have enough points and advantage to seal the enemy's abilities. Everyone immediately dispersed according to the predetermined plan. Sato's team successfully captured the first tower without any obstacles, while another group moved to the second tower, but they ran into Ikai, who had been waiting as if he knew their path beforehand. Ikai single-handedly took down the entire group in just a few breaths, shocking the whole blue team. The commander of that group knew she wasn't strong enough to face him for long, but also understood she had to hold Ikai here until the team's main damage dealer arrived. She drew her giant sword and charged forward, swinging a powerful slash as if pouring all her strength into it. But Ikai dodged easily as if strolling in a garden and looked at her with the eyes of a hunter accustomed to standing at the top of the food chain. The girl began to exhaust herself. But Ikai grabbed her sword and told her to put more force into it. Those words told her the opportunity had come, and she activated her weight control ability. The sword immediately became heavy as a mountain, pressing Ikai to the ground. But Ikai didn't waver at all. He broke her sword, then threw a sledgehammer-like kick, sending her flying and leaving her gasping for breath, body aching from the injury. Ikai smiled again, saying he was truly impressed with her strength. Her broken sword transformed into a light stick, and Ikai handed it back to her, telling her to continue playing with him to kill time until her teammates arrived. Meanwhile, in many different directions, red team members were slaughtering blue team members. The red team old man burned and killed people just by touching them, while the blue-haired girl controlled numerous drones, shooting at blue team members, forcing them to hide desperately. The blind old samurai coldly and cruelly cut down anyone who dared block his path. In another corner, Shin was facing Kuro's assistant, and both charged into fierce battle. And Akira had to directly face Rin, someone he knew he couldn't underestimate for even another second. However, she came here not to defeat him, but to complete a deal that both had secretly agreed upon beforehand. He was always wary of everyone around him, especially Rin, so he immediately fled as soon as he saw he was out of her sight. While fleeing, Rin had contacted another person, reporting that she had seen Akira's current position and requesting them to act according to the arranged plan. Elsewhere, Shin discovered Kuro's assistant had been secretly killing other team members. He immediately grabbed the man's throat to stop him from causing more damage. However, Kuro's assistant used his power to shrink the handcuff on his wrist, forcing Shin to step back. Then he said he had hidden a steel wire around his wrist and could activate an ability to make the wire contract. The wire tightened so much it nearly severed Shin's arm. Nevertheless, Shin still believed the battle wasn't over. He quickly bandaged the wound with the cloth he was wearing, then continued returning to the battlefield. Back with Ikai, he began showing disappointment because no one had come to rescue the girl with the heavy great sword. He was about to finish her off right there. But at that exact dangerous moment, Yuri appeared, throwing a powerful kick that pushed Ikai back and rescued the girl. Ikai laughed, saying finally someone interesting enough had appeared for him to fight and relieve his boredom. Yuri placed the girl aside, then charged straight at Ikai. However, he easily blocked her first attack. She used her flexible and agile movement ability, escaping from him after landing several hits on target. This was the tactic Akira had already calculated. He believed Ikai possessed strength similar to Yuri, so she couldn't beat him through simple one-on-one combat. Ikai immediately tried to prevent her from using the hit and run tactic by grabbing her wrist tightly. But Akira had also accounted for that situation. Yuri did exactly as Akira instructed, immediately kneeing Ikai, then unleashing a barrage of dozens of rapid punches that knocked Ikai down. However, he quickly stood up and prepared to charge into battle again. Meanwhile, Kuro believed his spy would soon act and stab Emoto in the back. However, thanks to Ringo's ability, they had isolated and captured the spy before he could carry out any act of betrayal. Akira had told Ringo to check if any slaves previously rescued from the red team were lying about their abilities. Thanks to that, she discovered the first spy. Ringo tried to convince him that the blue team wouldn't lose. After being given water to drink, he agreed to talk more. But when Ringo returned with another glass of water, she discovered the spy was dead. This proved there was a second spy. Neither Ringo nor Ikai realized that person was the old woman standing in the team, and she was the one who had secretly killed him. Akira was running toward Kuro to end the battle by defeating the red team leader. Earlier, he didn't want Yuri to go rescue the female swordswoman because he was afraid she would be in danger. But she didn't listen. She felt Akira still hadn't treated her as a real partner, but only saw her as a tool. That was why Akira was now alone on his way toward the enemy. As he was running, a series of knives flew toward him. He dodged them and discovered Madoka had appeared to join the fight. Akira activated his cannon and shot at a tree behind to create a diversion. But Madoka quickly cut down the tree and used the broken wood pieces as weapons, then threw them, hitting Akira. Akira tried to maintain a mental standoff with Madoka, but suddenly the red team's blind samurai charged to attack him. Thanks to Madoka's warning shout, Akira managed to dodge the first strike. The blind samurai prepared to strike again, but Madoka threw several daggers to stop him. Then he proposed a temporary ceasefire to Akira and said they should deal with the samurai first because he was hindering their fight. But actually everything was within Akira's plan. He had told Rin to call the blind samurai to this exact location and also called Madoka there, hoping to exploit Madoka's thoughtlessness to turn him into a temporary ally when Yuri wasn't by his side. They believed the samurai had an ability similar to Madoka's because Madoka's daggers could cut through anything. Yet they couldn't cut through the samurai's sword earlier, when the samurai swung his sword, releasing an air slash that split the tree behind in half. Both were forced to reconsider their entire strategy. The samurai continued unleashing an attack from above, and they could barely block it. Right when Akira kicked up dirt to blind everyone then slipped away, Madoka became confused because he didn't understand the opponent's true power. But Akira had heard from Ringo that the samurai definitely had an ability similar to Madoka's. He wondered what the secret behind those air slashes was, while Madoka didn't care and only demanded Akira support him immediately. Akira immediately charged up for a surprise attack, but the blind samurai still easily blocked that strike. Both continued exchanging rapid and fierce blows. Then, in a moment of opening, the samurai disarmed Madoka and threw his weapon aside as if it was just a useless toy. Taking advantage of the moment when the enemy was still focused on Madoka, Akira immediately raised his cannon and tried shooting through multiple tree trunks to hit the samurai. However, the samurai reacted even faster and unleashed a sharp air slash that left a long gash on Akira's arm. He staggered back and understood that now the samurai had almost secured victory in his hands. Instead of being afraid, Akira told Madoka he wanted him to use the debris from the destroyed trees, because Akira believed if Madoka could use his ability to transform them into weapons, that would be the only chance to turn the tide. The samurai of course didn't hesitate and immediately reacted. However, Madoka was one beat faster. He kicked several wood pieces flying straight toward the opponent, and while they were still floating midair, he transformed them into sharp knives. The samurai was severely wounded by the surprise attack, and one of the blades pierced straight into his head, causing him to collapse and die on the spot. Further away, the blue-haired girl had shot down everyone blocking her path. But right before dying, the red team nun had twisted a doll's neck, then thrown it at the blue-haired girl. The doll hit her leg and immediately caused her neck to twist a full rotation, gruesomely making her collapse to the ground. However, just a few seconds later, she stood up again and calmly twisted her head back as if it was just a familiar action. She was preparing to cut the nun's corpse to ensure the opponent couldn't resurrect or attack again when Rin suddenly appeared and asked what her true ability was. The blue-haired girl appeared extremely angry. She said she had disliked Rin from the start and declared she would kill Rin, then blame everything on the blue team. Rin replied that she had similar thoughts. The girl licked her hand and transformed it into a sharp blade, then charged to attack. However, Rin blocked it by protruding blades from her knees and stopped the first strike. The girl immediately switched to ranged attacks and had her drone shoot Rin, causing her injuries. But what she didn't expect was that Rin was just waiting for this opportunity. Rin spat a few drops of blood toward her, and they immediately transformed into small blades. Midair, they destroyed all the drones, and the following attack severely wounded her. Her knife got stuck in a tree trunk, causing her to lose her ability to defend. Rin used blood to pin her there, then continued deeper into the forest. While moving, the blue-haired girl commanded her tank drones to attack, but Rin continued destroying them all. Then she discovered a girl holding a control box deep in the forest and immediately stabbed the box to finish off the controller. It turned out she was the real master, while the blue-haired girl was just a slave with the ability to create toys as if they were real. She froze from the unexpected betrayal. Rin said she had made a deal with the blue team, and in case the blue team won, they would acknowledge her as a spy sent to the red team. This way, Rin could survive regardless of which team won. Then Rin decided to kill the girl in front of her to silence her. Shin was struggling with Kuro's assistant, who possessed the ability to shrink the distance between all things, an ability that allowed him to appear almost instantly at any position he wanted within his control range. Combining that special ability with the extremely thin but incredibly sharp steel wires he had secretly strung throughout the area beforehand, he gradually pushed Shin into a weak position. Every time Shin tried to dodge or counterattack, he would shrink the distance in a single breath to cut into his limbs. Finally, part of Shin's foot was almost completely severed. However, despite receiving injuries so severe that ordinary people would certainly have collapsed, Shin maintained his faith and determination. He refused to use the ability granted to him, because he had once told himself he wouldn't use it without genuine consent from his heart. However, the assistant had no reason to hesitate. With a cutting quick motion, he shrunk the distance once more. In the blink of an eye, he was standing right behind Shin, tightening a steel wire around his neck. He intended to finish him right there. But right at that moment, the girl Shin had rescued before suddenly flew to his side. She charged straight into the assistant and knocked him hard to the ground. The assistant gritted his teeth, intending to deal with her first, but Shin had immediately lunged forward to shield her. As a result, he took a steel blade straight to the chest. The moment he was wounded, memories of the past suddenly flooded Shin's mind. He saw images of his younger self, a weak boy always hospitalized due to illness. He also saw his older brother, a powerful and famous professional wrestler. One day, the two brothers had a catastrophic accident. His older brother sacrificed himself, and his organs were used to save Shin's life. Amidst the daze, he suddenly saw an illusion of his brother standing before him in the familiar wrestling outfit. His brother told him he must use the ability right now, because now Shin had something important that needed to be protected at all costs. As if awakened, Shin finally decided to follow his brother's words. He activated the ability, making his body invincible for 2 seconds. His entire body was wrapped in an invisible but solid armor, strong enough to render all weapons useless. He stretched his body, shattering the steel wire with just a light jerk. Then he charged straight at the assistant, throwing a punch so powerful, it sent the man's entire body flying backwards. The invincibility ability wore off right after, but Shin swore he would continue using this power to make those who created this brutal game pay for dragging him into it. In another area of the battlefield, Sato was confronting the old man who had the ability to destroy anything he touched. Just his hand passing over an object would cause it to immediately decay as if dissolved from within. Sato was already severely wounded, and the arrows he shot were all destroyed with just a light touch. Nevertheless, he remained determined to fight for the whole team. Right at that moment, Akira appeared beside him to provide support. Sato wanted him to leave here and go support Yuri, while also finding an opportunity to eliminate the enemy team's leader. But Akira looked at Sato's injuries and said he should go save the female swordswoman he secretly loved, and leave this old man to him. Sato, hearing this, gritted his teeth, swore he would save the one he loved, then immediately ran off. Left alone, Akira and the old man began their confrontation. Akira threw a rock at him, but the old man touched it and made it crumble immediately. However, Akira quickly discovered he wasn't using magic at all, but was actually causing a special chemical reaction when touching objects. The old man appeared impressed with Akira's sharp deductive ability, but he still believed Akira couldn't use the cannon right now, so he decided to strike as quickly as possible. Akira then fled, hiding behind a large tree trunk, and drew the sword he had taken from the blind samurai earlier. The old man panicked, thinking Akira had killed the samurai and stolen his ability. That was exactly what Akira wanted. Taking advantage of the opponent's lowered guard, Akira mimicked the samurai's air slash and severely wounded the old man. Then Akira took his device and eliminated him from the game. The old man asked what Akira's true ability was. Akira didn't answer directly, only saying the old man had already seen the truth through how he fought. The cannon was just a tool for misdirection, while his true ability was something he hadn't clearly shown anyone. He used his opponent's misunderstandings to control the flow of information and turn the situation in the most favorable way for the blue team. Meanwhile, at the blue team's base, the hunt for the spy was tensely underway. The first spy had been killed with a knife. Ringo began suspecting the old woman, who was very skilled with knives, but she tried to dismiss this thought because the woman had been with them for a long time. However, to be sure, she still decided to investigate more about her true ability. But everything was too late. The old woman suddenly attacked Yudo with her real ability, which was the cannon. However, Emoto had been on guard beforehand. He blocked the strike and said he had always known she was a spy. Ringo and another young man were also present, but Emoto immediately told them to step back to avoid danger. Emoto asked the old woman why she had betrayed the blue team and done such cruel things, and she answered that Ikai and Kuro were orphans she had cared for at the orphanage before. She said she had been powerless to protect them at that time, and she was willing to do anything now just to protect the 2 children she considered her own flesh and blood. Right after that confession, she suddenly pulled out the female swordswoman's little son. The cannon barrel coldly pressed right against his head. She demanded that if Emoto wanted the child to live, he must throw away his device and disable his own ability. He stood silent for a few seconds, then accepted. He slowly threw away the device and dropped his defensive ability. At that exact moment, she immediately struck him with a fatal blow, severely wounding him and knocking him down. Then she left with the boy in her arms. While running, she called Kuro and reported she had taken down the enemy leader. But the game was still continuing because Emoto wasn't the true leader of the blue side. Just minutes later, Akira appeared at that area, and Kuro immediately realized he might be the true leader of the blue team. On the other side, Ringo, after hearing the news, decided to chase after the old woman. She suddenly attacked from behind with a quick stab to rescue the boy. However, the old woman reacted extremely fast and immediately returned fire with the cannon, forcing Ringo to hastily retreat into a defensive stance. Ringo was extremely worried, but then she remembered Akira's words that she must believe in her own ability and dare to copy the opponent's power. Based on that belief, Ringo gathered all her courage. She activated her ability and copied the cannon, creating a weaker version, but with 10 times faster firing rate. Ringo demanded the old woman put the boy down to prevent him from getting caught up. The shootout began. Both sides fired continuously, though the power was unequal, but Ringo's firing rate forced the old woman to defend constantly. However, Ringo had no experience at all, so her shots only hit rocks. The old woman exploited the opening, snuck around behind, and knocked Ringo to the ground. Ringo tried to raise her gun, but was pinned down by the woman. The woman beat her and asked for the true leader's identity. Ringo refused. She cried while saying she would rather die than let someone as cruel as her take the boy. She twisted her body, shot at the rocks behind, causing them to shatter, then said if necessary, she would kill the boy before letting him fall into evil hands. The old woman panicked for real. She rushed to find the boy in the rubble, but couldn't find him. It turned out Ringo had tricked her. She had held the boy and kept him safe in her arms. Ringo demanded the old woman throw away her device and surrender. She said this time she would really shoot. The old woman reluctantly complied, but right when Ringo bent down to pick up the device, the old woman grabbed a rock intending to finish her. Ringo had anticipated this. She shot at the cliff wall, causing large rocks to fall and crush the woman. Meanwhile, Yuri and Ikai were still fighting fiercely, and right at the moment they were nearly exhausted, reinforcements in the form of Madoka and Shin appeared. They said Akira had told them to return to support Yuri because currently he was directly confronting Kuro. Ikai laughed contemptuously, saying their plan was too naive and that they were underestimating him and Kuro. At another location in the forest, Kuro called all slaves to surround Akira and declared that regardless of what Akira's true ability was, he would still kill him. Akira now understood that if he continued defending passively, he would completely fall into a cornered position and all the elaborate plans he had carefully arranged would immediately collapse. Therefore, he decided to strike first proactively, not letting the opponent seize control of the situation for even a moment. He raised the familiar cannon and fired straight at Kuro, treating this as an opening attack, to test his reaction and also probe how Kuro had actually arranged his formation. However, that powerful shot was easily blocked by enormous balls created by Sako, who now no longer held any will or freedom, but had become a complete slave under Kuro's absolute control. The heavy balls spinning in midair created pressure, forcing Akira to step back. Then Kuro casually signaled another slave, ordering them to use their ability to break the ball into countless brick-sized pieces, then fire them all at Akira, forcing him to dodge continuously. Akira initially tried firing a warning shot to suppress them, but he quickly realized that those affected by Kuro's debt collection ability could never disobey his orders. Their wills were locked tight and every command, no matter how unreasonable or cruel, was absolutely obeyed. This made Akira understand that just threatening or blocking them wasn't enough to change the situation. Kuro then declared in a confident tone that he was always the one controlling everything and Akira was just struggling uselessly. Akira asked Kuro if that was why he called this place a petty kingdom. That statement made Kuro freeze for a moment and reveal a slight wavering. He pulled Akira into a meaningless conversation as if to hide his emotions. Upon hearing the words petty kingdom, Kuro immediately ordered all slaves to stop, making them stand motionless around the battlefield. This action made Akira momentarily feel relieved, as if the pressure weighing on him had loosened somewhat. However, right after Kuro coldly declared that what he just said about the petty kingdom had been recorded as a symbolic debt and according to the rules of the debt collection ability, that meant he had automatically become Kuro's slave, even though he never wanted that. Before Akira could react, Kuro had used his ability to tighten the newly created debt and immediately bound his right leg, causing him to lose balance. Simultaneously, he made all the slaves standing around charge and attack him from multiple directions. Akira understood the situation had gone beyond the point where he could continue hiding his true ability, so he was forced to use what everyone mistook as his second ability. He instantly teleported behind Kuro in a surprise assault attempt, hoping to take him down before he could give any more orders. However, Kuro had already calculated this. He had placed a slave at that position beforehand, and that person immediately captured Akira, locking his movements and shattering the plan in an instant. Kuro then stabbed Akira once and declared everything was going exactly as he had predicted from the start, and that no matter how hard Akira tried, he couldn't escape his control. Nevertheless, Akira just smiled and replied that everything Kuro believed was only what he wanted him to believe. Akira's words shook Kuro's mind greatly because he confidently declared the plan was going the way Kuro thought only because he had deliberately led him to that conclusion. Akira said Kuro had fallen completely into his trap, and that right now he was standing before him as if he had never been captured or wounded. This made Kuro believe Akira might be using Yudo's ability, the ability to nullify all types of powers. Therefore, Kuro attacked instinctively without thinking. At that exact moment, Akira used Yudo's ability to nullify the strike, then countered Kuro. The recoil was so strong he was flung off the ground, flying backwards and landing heavily. Kuro was defeated before he could give any new orders as his wound halted all control over his slaves. Immediately, the slave marks on everyone on the battlefield disappeared as if they never existed. They fell into chaos, then erupted in cheers of joy because they had finally escaped their chains. Akira stood up and revealed he had never actually been wounded from the start. The stab earlier only hit padding made of excess flesh and books he had cleverly stuffed into his clothes to reduce damage. Everything was just an act used to deceive Kuro. Kuro still couldn't believe he had lost just because of moves Akira had arranged long ago. He said everything had been carefully calculated even before the battle began. A few days earlier, when Shin captured the red team's first spy, That person in fear had revealed some important information. Akira immediately saw an opportunity. With Yuri's help, he disguised himself as a spy and infiltrated straight into the red team's base. There, he provided Kuro with half-true, half-false information that directed his thinking according to his will. Through that, he also learned the entire operating principle of the debt collection ability and how Kuro used it to dominate everyone. Akira told Kuro that throughout that time, he had never realized he was always in his hands. Kuro finally accepted defeat. He handed his device to Akira and said that even though they might have won this battle, they could never overcome Ikai once he got serious. Regardless, Akira immediately took the device and ran. But Kuro with his final action pulled out another device, preparing for his next plan. Meanwhile, on another front, Shin, Yuri and Madoka coordinated to create strong pressure on Ikai, forcing him to retreat. However, that inadvertently angered Ikai and made him release his full true power. He charged and twisted Madoka's arm, then flung him away like a light toy. Then he attacked Yuri, sending her flying, and finally took down Shin right when his invincibility ability had just expired. Yuri still tried to stand despite her arm being completely broken and faced Ikai. At this point, Ikai fought while telling his life story. He said from young he was taught he wasn't human, but just a useless animal. He recalled how he grew up in the orphanage where the spy old woman used to work. There, Kuro was his only friend. He loved books about how insects formed their own kingdoms, but the orphanage headmaster was a two-faced, cruel person. He tortured them mercilessly, then pretended to be kind before the authorities. He called the children animals and insects and stomped on the book Kuro had been reading. That was the moment Ikai completely lost control. The power in his body exploded, and he grabbed an ashtray and beat the headmaster to death, marking the beginning of his blood-stained life. Afterward, he and Kuro built a kingdom in the shadows. Yuri said she was sorry his past was so tragic, but she still had to defeat him to return home, to protect her stepsister, to not let her become someone like him. Finally, she charged toward Ikai, and he also charged toward her. Their fists met midair, creating an impact that shook the entire forest. Yuri charged straight at Ikai, and both threw punches at each other midair. The collision force so strong the sound of cracking bones rang out clearly. Yuri's arm bones cracked, but she stubbornly used the arm that was already broken before to counter his punch. The bones in Ikai's arm were also severely broken, but in his crazed, uncontrolled state, he could barely feel any pain at all. He continuously threw sledgehammer-heavy punches at Yuri, yet her body stood firm, not retreating even a single step. This confused Ikai. He asked her why she was still standing firm like that, and whether she felt pain. Yuri screamed, admitting she was in so much pain she wanted to collapse immediately. And she also said directly that he must be in just as much pain. He was just denying it to escape his true feelings. In that moment, Yuri visualized her own painful past, and at the same time understood somewhat of Ikai's tragic past. Both had grown up in the cruel hands of adults, people who loved violence and poured cruelty onto children. She told him that his claim of not feeling pain was just a way to run from reality and cover up the weakness inside. Her words pierced through the hard shell Ikai always built around himself, making him finally truly feel the pain spreading throughout his body. Yuri apologized because she couldn't pull him back to the right path anymore. But she still wanted to give him the most beautiful ending possible. She gathered all her remaining strength and threw a fatal punch straight at his chest. But right at that decisive moment, her ability suddenly disappeared. This allowed Ikai to seize the opportunity and punch back, sending Yuri's body flying backwards. Meon announced that the red team had used 50 points to completely seal Yuri's ability. It was Kuro who had secretly done that at the last moment. He deliberately freed all slaves, forcing Akira to leave hurriedly to help his friends. But in truth, he had never given Akira the real device. Thanks to this final trick, Kuro had deceived Akira one more time right before breathing his last. Back on the battlefield, Ikai approached Yuri, preparing to kill her. But right at that moment, Akira's announcement rang out everywhere, broadcast through his remaining points. Akira demanded Ikai not kill Yuri or anyone else. If he didn't comply, Akira would kill Kuro before escaping. He revealed he was the true leader of the blue team and made a final offer. If Ikai wanted revenge for Kuro, they could meet right now in a one-on-one combat. Hearing this, Ikai realized Kuro had died, and that he was the one who sealed Yuri's ability as a final gift. Nevertheless, he still wanted to fight Akira to avenge his friend. He accepted the challenge Akira proposed. Akira requested to talk to Yuri first, ensuring she was still alive. Thanks to Kuro's signal, Yuri returned to reality and he reassured her. Akira declared he would fight in her place, then immediately rushed to her position and faced Ikai directly. Ikai roared and charged at Akira with all the strength remaining in his body. Akira didn't move but calmly waited for him to approach. Right at the moment the fist grazed past, Akira leaned to dodge, then used the punch he had prepared beforehand. This was the ultimate technique he had practiced with Yuri while learning to use various types of abilities. During that training, Akira couldn't fully control Yuri's ability to enhance his body strength by 5 times, so he decided to focus everything into a single technique, one perfect punch that he would use as his trump card in decisive situation. Now, fighting Ikai, Akira activated that ability, pouring all his strength and multiplying it by 5. The punch came out so fast the air seemed to tear apart. It struck Ikai and sent him flying far away. Akira afterward also collapsed from exhaustion. But to his horror, Ikai still struggled to stand once more, breathing heavily, eyes red. He only managed to say one short sentence that the punch just now was awesome, then finally collapsed to the ground and breathed his last. The battle ended. The game officially concluded. The agents appeared and congratulated Akira. Meon declared the blue team victorious. Everyone began cheering in celebration. Akira walked to Yuri's side and the two fists bumped from a distance. He apologized to her, and she said there was nothing to worry about. Yuri was happy because in the end he still came to save her. Right after, Meon came to meet Akira, apologized for ruining the romantic moment, and said that as the winner, he would have to complete one final mission. Meanwhile, Yuri and the others were carried away. Meon promised Akira would see them again once he completed his role as emperor. Akira washed his face at a nearby stream when Omoto appeared to congratulate him. He said he had witnessed the entire battle and commented that Akira's ability was extremely interesting. Akira warily asked what his purpose was. Omoto raised his hand and Akira immediately thought he possessed an ability similar to the cannon. And just as he thought, Omoto fired a warning shot but had no intention of killing him. Omoto declared his only goal in this project was to personally kill Meon. He demanded Akira's support, otherwise Akira himself would later die at his hands. Knowing Meon was watching, Omoto declared he would start acting from now then left, telling Akira to meet him in round 4. Akira was exhausted and passed out on the spot. When he woke up, Akira found himself back to normal life. But this time something had changed. Yuri appeared in the real world and ran to embrace him. Madoka, Ringo, Shin and even Rin also appeared in the real world. On their wrists were green bracelets indicating they had entered phase 4 of the project. Akira understood everything was still continuing, but at least this time he had a girlfriend by his side, so he temporarily considered that a small victory. However, Meon was also in the outside world. She observed everything and waited for the opportunity to pull everyone into the project's vortex once again.